Have you ever gone to the store for one simple item and walked out with a bag full of things you never planned to buy? Or perhaps you've ordered something online, felt excited while waiting for it to arrive, only to lose interest a few days later. Most people have experienced some version of this. We often describe it as impulse buying, poor self-control, or simply making a bad financial decision. But what if those purchases make sense to the brain, even when they don't make sense to the wallet? The story of unnecessary spending isn't only about money. It's about how the human mind interprets reward, identity, emotion, and social belonging. What looks irrational on the surface often follows surprisingly predictable psychological patterns underneath. One of the most influential ideas in behavioral economics is that people do not always make decisions through careful calculation. Instead, much of everyday decision-making relies on mental shortcuts, emotional cues, and immediate context. Researchers have shown that our choices are often shaped by how options are presented, how we feel in the moment, and what captures our attention. Rather than acting like perfectly logical decision-makers, we frequently balance emotion and reasoning at the same time. From an evolutionary perspective, this isn't necessarily a flaw. For most of human history, resources were uncertain. When food, tools, or useful materials became available, taking advantage of the opportunity often increased the chances of survival. The human brain evolved to respond quickly to potential rewards because hesitation could sometimes mean losing valuable resources. Today's environment is very different. Instead of occasional opportunities, we live among constant invitations to consume. Limited time offers, personalized recommendations, social media advertisements, loyalty programs, and one-click purchasing all compete for attention. The reward systems that once helped our ancestors survive now operate in an environment where opportunities are nearly endless. Part of this process involves dopamine, a neurotransmitter commonly associated with reward. Although dopamine is often described as the brain's pleasure chemical, researchers increasingly view it as playing an important role in anticipation and motivation. Interestingly, the excitement often peaks before obtaining the reward rather than after. This helps explain why browsing online stores or imagining a purchase can sometimes feel more exciting than actually owning the item. Think about someone who spends several evenings researching a new phone they don't urgently need. They compare specifications, watch reviews, imagine how it will improve their daily life, and begin picturing themselves using it. By the time they finally make the purchase, much of the emotional reward has already occurred. A few weeks later, the phone simply becomes another everyday object. This pattern appears far beyond technology. Someone might buy expensive fitness equipment believing it represents the beginning of a healthier lifestyle. Another person purchases books faster than they can read them because owning the books feels connected to becoming the kind of person who reads regularly. In both situations, the purchase reflects not only the object itself, but also an imagined future identity. Psychologists sometimes describe this as identity-based behavior. People don't only buy products, they often buy stories about who they hope to become. Clothing can symbolize confidence. Professional equipment can symbolize ambition. Home decor can symbolize stability. The purchase becomes meaningful because it represents an identity, not simply because of its practical function. This helps explain why marketing rarely focuses only on features. Advertisements frequently associate products with belonging, success, freedom, attractiveness, creativity, or achievement. Rather than saying, "Here is what this product does," they often communicate, "Here is the kind of person you could become." Social comparison strengthens this effect. Human beings naturally evaluate themselves relative to others. This tendency has long helped people understand social norms and group expectations. However, modern technology has dramatically expanded the number of comparisons we encounter each day. Scrolling through carefully selected moments on social media can create the impression that everyone else is traveling more, dressing better, decorating their homes more beautifully, or achieving financial milestones more quickly. Even when people intellectually understand that these images represent curated highlights, emotional responses can still emerge automatically. Behavioral economists have also explored the concept of relative value. Satisfaction often depends less on absolute circumstances than on comparison. Receiving a salary increase may feel rewarding until discovering that colleagues received larger raises. Likewise, buying a perfectly functional car may feel less satisfying after repeatedly seeing luxury vehicles online. The surrounding reference point quietly shifts. This does not mean social comparison always leads to overspending. Sometimes it inspires learning or healthy ambition. But when identity becomes tied too closely to visible consumption, spending can begin serving emotional goals rather than practical needs. Another overlooked factor is decision fatigue. Every day, people make hundreds of small decisions involving work, relationships, technology, transportation, and family responsibilities. As mental energy becomes depleted, the brain increasingly relies on shortcuts. Immediate rewards become more attractive because they require less cognitive effort than carefully evaluating long-term consequences. Imagine finishing a demanding workday after solving problems for hours. On the way home, an advertisement appears offering a limited-time discount on something you've casually considered buying before. Under ideal conditions, you might compare prices, think about whether you truly need it, and perhaps decide to wait. But mental exhaustion changes the equation. The immediate emotional reward becomes easier to choose than further deliberation. Scarcity cues create another powerful influence. Messages such as, "Only 2 left," "Sale ends tonight," or "Exclusive release" activate sensitivity to potential loss. Behavioral research suggests that people often experience potential losses more intensely than equivalent gains. Missing an opportunity can feel emotionally larger than obtaining a similar benefit. Interestingly, businesses do not necessarily need to deceive consumers for these effects to occur. Limited inventory, seasonal availability, or promotional periods may genuinely exist. Yet even authentic scarcity can amplify emotional decision-making because the brain interprets disappearing opportunities differently from ordinary choices. Culture also plays a significant role. Throughout history, possessions have communicated social information. They have signaled occupation, community membership, economic position, or cultural identity. Modern consumer societies have simply expanded the number of objects capable of carrying symbolic meaning. This is why two people with similar incomes may spend very differently. One may prioritize travel because experiences align with their values. Another may invest in education. Someone else may value collecting art, technology, or fashion. Financial decisions are rarely shaped by numbers alone. They are filtered through personal identity, cultural expectations, family experiences, and emotional associations. Perhaps the most counterintuitive insight is that buying something unnecessary does not automatically indicate irresponsibility. Sometimes it reflects celebration, generosity, creativity, curiosity, or genuine enjoyment. Human behavior cannot always be reduced to maximizing financial efficiency. The more interesting question is whether we recognize which need we are actually trying to satisfy. Is the purchase solving a practical problem, expressing a personal value, supporting a meaningful hobby, or temporarily easing an emotional discomfort? The answer may differ each time. Understanding these patterns is less about judging spending and more about understanding the mind that makes the decision. The same psychological systems that encourage unnecessary purchases also help people pursue goals, build relationships, and imagine better futures. They are neither entirely helpful nor entirely harmful. Their effects depend greatly on the environments in which they operate. The next time you feel the sudden urge to buy something, it may be worth asking a different question. Instead of asking, "Can I afford this?" perhaps ask, "What story does this purchase represent to me?" Sometimes the answer will point toward genuine value. Other times, it may reveal that what we truly seek cannot be placed inside a shopping cart. What everyday purchase has made you stop and think about why you wanted it in the first place? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy calm, evidence-informed explorations of psychology, human behavior, and money psychology, consider subscribing for more conversations like this.